Alright, so welcome to this actual build guide for a low-life Chakram Blade Dancer that I came up with myself and I'm quite proud of and just wanted to share with everyone. And with the help of everyone on the forums, was able to make this build quite a bit better than it initially was, but I'll get to that later. So, first, to just go over how the build functions, we use Exsanguinous, Last Steps of Living, to activate the Death's Door passive down at the bottom of Blade Dancer, which gives us a massive 24% flat critical strike chance and minus 24% damage taken, which also offsets the increased damage taken that we would get from dual wielding. So, because of the mass amount of critical strike chance, with just a little bit more crit investment through, say, critical precision, and I believe, well, of course, all in, because we're going to be always critting. But actually, I think it's mostly just critical precision, and then the flat crit chance from the double fulgurite shards. We're actually able to achieve 100% crit chance with Chakram, and I believe Lethal Mirage as well. But so yeah, the build's playstyle revolves around throwing Chakrams. Typically just grouping up mobs, then using Synchronized Strike and just letting you and your shadows kind of go to town with the barrage of 5 Chakrams to throw out at once. Single target damage is kind of similar. You just Synchronized Strike, Lethal Mirage, pretty simple. Let's see if I can actually hit the dummy with it. And there we go. So first I'll get into the gear. The idols may look weird, but that's just because all we really care about with our idols is health and ward retention, and maybe some elemental resists if it shows up. The only other idols that we would really care about are maybe ones with throwing damage or critical strike multiplier, but the critical strike multiplier is kind of pointless. We already have so much crit multi with 75% on the tree and another, I think, 75%. Yeah, from Massacre on Shuriken's tree. It's just, you don't really need the upwards of 20 more from a single idol. That I just think going with the ward retention and health is so much better. So then the actual gear. First we'll go over the uniques. Self-explanatory, should be, is Exsanguinous, Last Steps of Living. Converts our health into ward, drains health constantly, enables low life. You probably get the idea if you know what these uniques do. And then Fulgurite Shards, dual wielded, because they give 4% flat critical strike chance, and the important thing is, unlike polearms, these give it to everything. It just says critical strike chance, it doesn't say melee, so it works for both our Shurikens and our Lethal Mirage. Flat lightning damage to both of those skills, cooldown recovery with Lethal Mirage, percent lightning damage, percent lightning pen, they're best in slot. And then Zithara's Conundrum is actually the newest addition to this build. Gives us full potion health converted to ward, very nice, as we don't need to worry about getting it as a prefix on gear, like our belt and our gloves, and, you know, lets you use potions to not only proc the Exsanguinous effect, if you so choose, but to actually heal yourself, even though you're a ward build. But then, probably the more important one is that we do not leech health. And this is so important because over in Lethal Mirage, in order to get Shadow Eater, which consumes shadows to do extra hits with Lethal Mirage, and Umbral Feast, which does more damage per shadow consumed. So if I'm correct, that's upwards of 160% more damage with Lethal Mirage. We have to take Ravaging Mirage, which gives melee health leech. So if we just take that off, see, we start gaining health, it starts to mess up our ward, and that was even without Synchronized Strike. With having Synchronized Strike, we get way too much health back. And I know it's on the dummy, so it's not entirely accurate, but trust me, when you play with it in practice, it doesn't feel good. So, yeah. Other than these technically 5 uniques, even though 2 of them are the same, we were on Ivory Rings, Necrotic Res, Ward Retention, as Ward Retention is really hard to get on this build. And then just a Umbral Visage for crit multi, Bronze Belt for armor, Crusader Gauntlets for void res, and Antidote Vial for poison res. Just fill out probably your resist first. Very important is to get minus throwing attack mana cost on at least 1 ring, so that way your shurikens are free. Because the combo of Synchronized Strike and Lethal Mirage will put you into negative mana. However, we offset that with the Swift Recovery node on Shift, as it just gives us a huge burst of mana back because, as you could probably tell, we're always on low life. So, I guess now I'll just go over the actual skills. So, Shuriken, one of the 2 main skills. 2 points into Alacrity as travel nodes, 5 points into Charge Steel because it's a lightning build, more lightning damage, always good. And 1 point into Shuriken Storm, guaranteed to shock, pretty useful against bosses, not too great against anything else, but can't complain. 1 point for guaranteed shock, yeah. You take 4 points into Ethereal Blades to get into Chakram. And then 1 point into Keen Throw, as even though we're not investing in any more projectiles from anywhere, Keen Throw is still a 20% more multiplier on Chakram, so it's kind of hard to go wrong. Jagged Edges for more damage and some extra base crit chance, and then Massacre for a crit multiplier. If you don't have a helmet with +1 to shurikens, first I would say try to get one immediately. But if you don't, probably just take a point out of Charge Steel. It's probably the least damaging node here, and everything else is kind of mandatory for travel, I guess. Like, of course, if we didn't need 4 points into Ethereal Blades, that'd be fantastic, but unfortunately we do. So next is Shift. We take 4 points into Velocity just because I kind of wanted a dump skill. You only need 3, so don't prioritize this, but take the 3 here. Get momentum, feels really nice. Lasting Presence is pretty nice as well, as just while clearing mobs, you can just kind of do a shift and then shuriken and probably kill a couple things, you know, small packs of mobs. But very, very important is Swift Recovery. This is how we maintain mana. As I already said, it's very hard to get mana for using both Synchronized Strike and Lethal Mirage, so Swift Recovery is huge. You're going to be using Shift pretty much on cooldown while you're playing this build. Other than that, you can go into whatever you want. You can take Sleight of Hand if you like using Shift as a bit of a damage booster, but I find that in Empowered Monoliths, we're so reliant on grouping up enemies and doing the whole Sync Strike Chakram combo that just throwing out 1 Chakram from Sleight of Hand, even with 5-point investment, isn't really that worth it. Plus, if you take Shadow Recuperation, you're getting, even if it's just 30 health, it is health. It messes up your ward a little bit. I don't like it, so I just opted to get Consumed by Shadow and then Broad Sweep for a little bit more range, but Consumed by Shadow for the kill threshold. It's just nice for while running through monos, even though we already have kill threshold on with it on Lethal Mirage. So next is Synchronized Strike. You want to get over to Dark Allies as soon as possible. Dark Allies probably over doubles the damage we would do with Chakram. Not so much with Lethal Mirage because we invest more into just additional Mirages in general, but Dark Allies is huge. As soon as you get Dark Allies, however, probably want to go into Dynamics, and then afterwards go down into Coordinated Cuts and Harmony of Death. The crit vulnerability isn't really a huge deal, but making them have less crit avoid is occasionally nice. It just depends on if you take the modifiers or not. Um, and then I'll actually go for Smoke Bomb last. So, Lethal Mirage, the first thing you want to do, if you have Zithar's Conundrum, is get to Shadow Eater and Umbral Feast. They're huge for your single target damage. You're probably not going to find a better skill for this. After that, get the 2 travel points into Majelkin Blade, Wounding Ambush, and then Shocking Grasp. 20 flat lightning damage isn't huge, but physical to Lightning Pen and the bleed to shock chance is nice. Take the 2 points into Umbral Travel for... Oh, it is called... Umbral Traversal, my bad. As travel nodes to get Umbral Expanse, then Without a Trace, or maybe the other way around. Not entirely sure what order would be better. And then your last couple of points are going to be Consuming Darkness for travel and Unending Mirage for more hits. Alright, and now Smoke Bomb. I kept it for last because you don't need to run Smoke Bomb. I had a hard time finding any extra skill I wanted here, so really you can kind of use whatever you want here. You could use Acid Flask for some armor shred, and hell, even go into Parting Gift and Arrival Gift while having Acid Flask and Elixir of Speed for an extra 2 seconds of haste. It makes you pretty fast, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. I just like the extra defense of Smoke Bomb, even if I'm not always using it. Something I messed around with was actually going with Cold Conversion Decoy, because we get 3 to 400 freeze rate multiplier off Last Episode Living. The only problem with that one is it kind of has a hard time freezing any of the bigger, more important mobs like Profane Flesh or Imperial Watchers, or God forbid the snakes from the newest chapter. But it's Decoy. Decoy's still just good, even if you go into, say, Ear Shatter, and Backup Buddy. You could also, something that was recommended on the forums, was go into Care Package for the Ballista. I tried it, and I just wasn't a huge fan of how it played. Having to kind of constantly throw down Ballistas on top of needing to use Synchronized Strike, Shift, and Shuriken, this is already an active playstyle build, but going into Care Package makes it a little too active for my personal preferences. However, if you want to try playing around with Ballista, go ahead. I don't think it's bad, especially because you can pick up Care Package and then later can pick up like Light Bolts, Practical Build, and Serrated Edges for some extra armor shred. But I just wasn't a huge fan of it. And then I guess I'll go over the passive tree, even though all this stuff's going to be linked in the planner. So first off, I would say do not try to level this like whatsoever. You need to pretty much already have access to Death's Door and All In before you can play this build. I don't know how you go about leveling rogues or whatever, so I'm not going to try and give any information on that. I started playing this build around level 81, I want to say. Again, you need to be able to get Death's Door and All In because they're such crucial parts of the build. Like, obviously Death's Door is. Arguably, you could live without All In, but it's 75% crit multiplier. That's a lot. But anyway, highly recommend going into Guile first, as flat dodge rating is very nice, but more importantly, poison res, because that combined with an antidote vial pretty much caps you on poison res. I'm 1% off. Can't really complain that much. Then, of course, you need to get Twin Blade to dual wield. Evasion is really nice for when you're just running through monos. Less damage taken while moving. Huge. Duelist is really good because percent dodge rating is a little hard to come by. Dodge and parry for flat dodge rating, lancing blow chance, and critical precision to, of course, cap us on crit chance. Steady hand was more of just a dump skill that you probably want to come back to a bit later. But I'd say earlier on in terms of these skills you'd come back to, because it gives you flat health and that's hard to come by. We don't take Thief Guard, even though that is a lot of flat health, because the health gain on Glancing Blow also messes up our ward recovery. I'm not sure if it would somehow balance out to be more worth it because you get the flat health, but I'm not going to bother doing the math. I'll save the skill points. So, Blade Dancer. Cloak of Shadows, Dexterity, Glancing Blow chance, solid. Shroud of Dusk, more flat health, chance to get Dust Shroud when hit, huge defense. Pursuit, move speed's always nice, and we don't really have anything else around here we want. You could maybe go into that word that I'm not going to try and pronounce because of shadow damage, but I think the health gain on Shadow Creation is really going to screw you over. Put 1 point into once for the dodge rating if hit recently. Again, I'm pretty sure this was just another travel node. Dump 8 points into Flash of Steel for damage while dual wielding. 6 points into Astevon's Pact for dodge rating. 1 point into Critical Eye. 8 points into Death's Door, and 5 points into All In. And then much later when you hit around level, I want to say it's going to be around like level 85, start picking up Focus Fire and then Missile Mastery. I believe I'll be 97? No. Well, if I get around to doing the last 2 chapters, I would be 98 by the time I finish Missile Mastery. So with that being said, the last 2 points really can go wherever. I thought about maybe picking up Concentration, but I just don't like how Concentration plays. I don't like the idea of having a damaging buff being on a cooldown, really, because we get hit quite a bit. We still have an almost 2300 ward pool to take some hits with, even though currently sitting on 22% dodge and 31% glancing blow chance. So yeah, that should just about cover the build. I'm not going to show any gameplay here because I've already got plenty of videos linked to it, to the forum post for this build. But as of right now, I've been able to clear empowered monos and bosses with some pretty rough mods, I'd say. Oh, I guess the one important thing is blessings. The only one I'd say you really, really need is this one from Reign of Dragons, Crit Avoidance. If you don't have the empowered version, you can get some good rolls of crit avoidance on your helmet and your belt, and that might be enough. It depends on the rolls, because even at tier 5, it's got a 12% range. So yeah, that, like, as soon as you get empowered monos, I would highly recommend trying to get Grand Survival of Might. It's a very big deal, as we're already kind of suffix starved on this build, as not only do we of course need resistances, which, worth mentioning that I'm not capped on Void Res, so that could be solved by if this did not have flat health on it, or if I had a higher roll on my Grand Survival of Might, I could get rid of crit avoidance on this and get Void Res or even health if I so choose. So yeah, back to my point being, you really want to get a good roll on Grand Survival of Might. Upwards of 70% crit avoid means that you can roll one piece of gear to have crit avoid, opens up a lot of room for health on your gear across, like, probably the helmet, the gloves, and the belt. Yeah, I think that's the only blessing that particularly matters. Lagan's got some good ones, namely, I've got ward per second right now, as I wanted to go a bit more defensive, but you could also get chance to shred lightning resist on hit, which is a pretty nice one too. Yeah, I guess quick answers to potential questions people might have. The two that I can mainly think of are, why are you not using either Strand of Souls or where's my better one? Lyraka's Claws. Lyraka's Claws is a huge boost to damage. 112% throwing crit multi and 2 projectiles with shurikens. That's a lot. Like, the tooltip alone just went up by about another 30%. Like, yeah, I think I saw a 14k crit in there somewhere. Of course, that was with shock, and it's on the dummy, so it's not entirely accurate. The important thing is about Lyraka's is that, one, it's a trade-off. We need resistances from Crusader Gloves, because without Crusader Gloves, I've got no Void Res, and my Fire Res is tanked, and it's a bit hard to get that much resist on your idols. Secondly is, it doesn't help our lethal Mirage damage, which is where I find that damage matters the most. Because the clear already feels pretty good with just this setup. Like, sure, you might not kill a pack in the first Sync Strike and Chakram combo, but you'll probably kill them with the second, and if not, anything that's left, you can probably just do a normal lethal Mirage, or even Shift Through, maybe, because of, yeah, Consumed by Shadow's kill threshold. So, I don't think Lyraka's Claws is worth it, though feel free to experiment. I didn't like it. Now, Strand of Souls, I did actually use for a good while. Unfortunately, mine rolled 35% ward retention, which is 5 off the minimum roll. But it's still quite a bit more ward, or at least competitive with a well-rolled percent increased health belt. Like, even just putting it on, that was almost another, or I think that was over another 100 ward I gained. But you might be able to squeeze it in if you get some really good rolls on your other gear. Like, if this had really high crit avoid and my Grand Survival and Might was max rolled, you could maybe argue putting Strand of Souls in, but we don't really care about, like, the mana spent gain as ward. You know, we're not a Spellblade. We're not dumping our mana all the time. But the ward retention is very, very good, because it's very hard to get ward retention on this build. I mean, even just an average roll on this, 50% more ward retention would be huge. I mean, we only have 113 right now. But I'm going to stick with the rare belt, as I want to get crit avoid and a little bit more lightning damage. So, yeah, I think that should just about cover the build. If anybody has any questions, or wants to see the build do anything, I guess, like Arena, for example, is something I'm going to try and push later, let me know in the forum posts. Yeah, so that should be about it.